Hello, Collective. It's Ron at Becoming Enlightened Together. Uh, I swear to you, this is like the third, if not the fourth attempt I have at trying to make a recording for today. Anyway, I'm going to make up for the readings that I have failed to put out this week. Like I said, I'm not doing this for money or anything like that. It's more of a compelling desire that I have to participate and to help with the collective in whatever way I can, and to reach out to people I wouldn't be able to see otherwise. That's why I'm doing this. I don't mix money with my spirituality because the temptations there and the things that could occur, in my opinion, could, and I'm not saying it is for all those who are making their living doing this, but it could have a detrimental effect. It could have a way of tainting your perspective on things. And it's probably a good idea since I seem to get a lot of the negative energy, and I guess it's because I've been allowed to go through a lot of negative things myself. So I can relate to it, I can explain it, perhaps from a more grounded perspective and not, incorporate, my own beliefs or uh, things of that nature incorporated into the reading itself, but rather from experience, I can say that it can be overcome. Okay, so with that being said, if you've been following the energy up to now for this week, I have missed the last couple of days, so I've decided to hunker down today and actually put out 3 readings to make up for the last 2 days I've missed, and also for today, which closes out this week. Which, again, if you've been paying attention at all to my readings in particular, you realize that it's been very, very low vibrational. In fact, it's been pointing in large measure to the karmics in our life. Now, by karmic, I simply mean for those who are involved, whether you are completely aware of it or you're just you're feeling that possibility. You see signs, and you have perhaps seen signs for a great number of years, in fact, that those people that come to you, whether they're family members or whether they're friends, perhaps lovers, perhaps people you work with or whatever, with smiles and desire to help and things like that, but you've always had a weird or a strange feeling around them. Again, trust your intuition, and hopefully, by utilizing this early warning system of divination, that you can help pinpoint at who these people may actually be in your life if you don't already know. I already have a very good idea of the ones that are in my particular life, and it's not a person, where it could be a single person in your life or it could be multiple people, as it is in my case. Either way, it doesn't matter. This is to help you to get over that finish line, get past these final tests and everything else, and then we can all celebrate, hopefully, at some point, in a way that is going to be very grand and worthwhile. Well, it's worthwhile simply because you end up growing as a result of these hardships, and that's where the collective has a tendency to see things a little bit differently than those who are ordinarily going through these very, very difficult times. I still battle with the idea at times, for example, that when something bad happens to me, that maybe I've done something to earn this or bad, or this is karma or something. And in some cases that may indeed be true, but for the most part, especially for those who have already come to the conclusion that no, you are really trying to do the very best that you can. You live by what is known as the golden rule in Christianity of doing unto others, you have them do unto you. You don't practice black magic and shit like that where you're trying to get your will over another's, to get what you want, um, rather than working for it or doing it in a way that is more, I guess you could say, legitimate. Okay? Karma is very real. Magic is very real. But you could use it for both good or for bad. If you're using it, and again, in a way against another person's will or unbeknownst to them to get your particular needs and desires met, um, then karma will come knocking at your door. It's guaranteed. Okay, it it's just a universal law, like so many others that we see basically spoken of in these esoteric, dogmatic, religious, books and so on. It's also within the Hermetic and the occultic works. So I know it to be a truth through my own observations in my own life. Now, whether you believe those things or not, that's up to you. Of course, you have to do your own work and come to your own conclusions. And I'm not going to speak for anybody else. I only speak for me. And I hope you're doing the same thing. Again, as we are part of this collective and everything else, we're here to edify and to help in this transitional time that this world is going through. And hopefully you can see it as well as I do, that a lot of things are changing in this world. It seems very hectic. It can be even scary for some people out there, especially if they don't have any type of, if you will, foundation, or they're not well grounded. So anyway, let's get right into the reading. So the overall energy for the week was that of the goddess Freya's rune. Whoops. And it, I had it right the first time. It's hard because everything's backwards when you're looking at it through the screen. Got this little bitty box up there. So, but Fehu is her rune, and it's in the reverse. So, basically the energies that are in reverse, unlike the tarot, where when you have a reversal of an energy, the card is upside down instead of upright. It doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly the opposite energy, so black versus white or good versus evil, whatever the case may be. It's more like gray. In other words, with the tarot, it's like telling you that it's moving in that particular direction, but it's not yet in that direction in many cases. Whereas with the runes, and I haven't gotten any clear-cut information to say otherwise yet. I'm still trying to find more and more information, but trying to find people that actually agree on this has not been an easy ordeal, especially as most of the information is being translated from other languages and other cultural perspectives, and of course the mixing of both Christianity together with the paganism, of the Norse belief system. And if you will, we see that within Christianity. The Christendom has basically incorporated a great deal of the Norse beliefs and so on, and other paganistic beliefs in their, form of Christianity. And Catholicism basically has done it in a way that has been stealthily incorporated. I'll use that word because a lot of the Christians believe it to be of Christian origin when it's really not. But it has been so successfully melded together that, they're not the wiser. Again, like even the days of the week are named after the Norse gods and goddesses. Yesterday was Friday, and that's Freya's day, and so on, Wednesday is Odin's day, or Woden's day, Tuesday is Tyr's day, the god Tyr. So, and we see that all over the place, and many other things. Even our language itself has incorporated a great deal of its grammatic structure from, the Norse, so to speak. That's a whole other matter. I just want to make sure that you understand I'm diligently trying to, separate these things, and yet also look at it from that perspective and others as well, from the other religious perspectives. Is there any tie to that? And yes, I'm finding that there is. I'm finding that there may be even some overlap in some ways to the Indus Valley belief systems, or Hinduism, if you will. And, perhaps that of Zoroastrianism, which is the first monotheistic religious belief system, by the way, and it's in Iran, of all places, the place we're fighting today. I could really get into that and talk about things that are very interesting that, are related, but again, I know that you're here for the reading, so let's go ahead and keep focusing on that. So, Fehu in the reverse, what does that mean? Well, it does talk about more of the black versus white in, the runes, again, unlike the tarot in many cases. Now, sometimes it is, but for the most part, it's more of a gray area. So with Freya being in the reverse, it talks about greed and disappointments. It talks about financial loss and property losses. It talks about the loss of your self-esteem, or something you've desperately been trying to hold on to. So it doesn't have to be related to you specifically. It could be a relationship that you're trying to hold on to, something materialistic like you're really, really trying to hold on to, like an automobile they're trying to repossess, whatever. It talks about failures of many types, not specific. It talks about burning out, feeling that you're just burned out. You can't do this anymore. You're atrophying, withering away. It talks about a lot of discord within your relationships and so on. It talks about cowardice, talks about stupidity and dullness, talks about poverty, slavery, and bondage. That's the overall energy for this week, which ends today at midnight, by the way. So it's not very good, as you can tell. Now, the energy that we pulled last Sunday for today, which is I'm actually doing this reading first, which is, I guess you could say, would be Thursday's reading. But it doesn't matter, because it's not the days of the week that matter. It's basically the energy that you're hearing when you're watching this, okay? But anyways, was Yera. Now, Yera also is in the reverse. Now, Yera, basically, when we're looking at it from the reverse, it tells us that we cannot rush what it is that we're trying to succeed at. Fruition of whatever that endeavor is cannot be rushed. It'll happen in God's timing, the universe's timing, your higher self's timing, your ancestors' timing, whatever the case may be, or whatever you believe in. But it does talk about also sudden setbacks. It talks about reversals. Perhaps you were sitting high in a hog for a while, sitting on your throne thinking you were the man or woman, whatever the case may be, but you're being dethroned. It's getting into things such as that. It talks about major changes. Perhaps repetitive types of situations are happening in your life as well, no matter how hard you try to change that. It talks about just a lot of bad timing, so no matter what your efforts are involved in something, whether you're actually putting the effort into it or not, it just seems like things just didn't happen because it was bad timing, whatever that may be. And again, it talks about poverty and just a myriad of different types of conflict. So that's what the past energy for today is. So it's very, very similar to what we have with, Fehu being the overall encompassing energy. Now, our present energy, or the energy that's present for this particular reading, is that of Wunyo. And Wunyo is also in the reverse. So it too is not a very positive energy that we're looking at. So it talks about all types of dissatisfaction and misery, fear. It talks about impatience and somebody who's just headstrong. Somebody perhaps, feeling a great deal of sorrow, or others around them are in sorrow. Somebody's going through a great deal of strife. Somebody's perhaps being alienated or alienating others. Somebody who may actually be in some state of delirium. Now remember, just like in tarot or any other form of divination, if this doesn't apply to you specifically, it's probably applying to the other party that we're talking about, which in this particular case is the karmic, whoever that is in your life, okay? So it's also talking about, somebody who's intoxicated, so somebody who's basically, addicted to alcohol. But it could also be other types of, intoxicants. It could be drugs. It doesn't matter. It also talks about somebody who has an impractical type of enthusiasm. So they're masquerading as being very enthusiastic to those around them. Again, they're putting on a show, more or less. They're putting on theater for those around them. They don't want them to know what's really going on in their life. So that's what this is intimating. So it's talk about somebody also who is basically in a raging frenzy. And again, this does seem like it's pointing to the karmics, and I know that's true in my life, so I presume it is in yours as well. So the word berserker, which is where that comes from, actually, it's another Nordic term that we've incorporated into English. And as you might already understand what that means, they were actual one of the two special forces that they had. You know, the Norse, the berserkers would get themselves in a rage and a fury where they were more or less immune to pain and suffering and all of that. So one berserker could take on, you know, a number of regular enemy troops and things of that nature, and they just cut them down, you know. But it also talks about possession, and yes, just like in the Linda Blair, you know, side of that. So somebody may have literally surrendered themselves over to the darkness, or they have been taken over by the darkness, and it's going to be manifested in many of the very attributes that I have been naming here. Okay, that doesn't mean that somebody who's angry or actually lost their mind, you know, once or whatever, you doesn't typically do that, is possessed. This is somebody that has got a long chain, if you will, of these attributes and traits. Okay, and it's manifesting outwardly now because they know that they're losing, and they're losing time. Now, the obstacles and challenges is the only energy that we have in the upright, and that is the goddess Urchta, but this is the rune Berkana. Now, why would a positive energy be shown in the obstacles and the challenges? Well, because it is an obstacle for, or a challenge for, the karmics. These are the things that they would have to do to begin to get themselves out of the hole that they have dug, and it's a very, very deep hole. So this would only be the start of it. But what it refers to, other than, yes, the birch tree, she's the birch goddess, like Mother Nature, so to speak. She kind of takes care and looks after the flora, the fauna, the animals, the young and women, and so on and so forth. But it also speaks about purity, talks about birthing of an idea, or maybe a new job, entrepreneurship, something of that nature. But it does speak specifically also about fertility. So yes, mostly concerning giving birth to a child. Okay. It also talks about mental, physical, and spiritual growth. If you're not willing to do the work that is required for those, you know, things, then again, everything else that we've pointed out is basically assured for you. If you're not already experiencing it, you certainly are going to. I mean, I guarantee you that. Now, it also talks about liberation and regeneration. So, if you want to free yourself from these things, then you have to literally be strong enough to go within and say that I'm not going to give in to this. I'm not going to give in to that. I'm not going to continue practicing or allowing these things into my life. And you have to be willing to give up things that, you know, you believe make you feel comfortable and everything else. You feel comfortable because your vibration is low. You're doing very low vibrational things. And the only way to break out of that is to start practicing higher vibrational types of, you know, activities and so on. Going within and doing your shadow work, you know, making the self-sacrifices that you have to do by, you know, working out physically, maybe, you know, doing mental stimulating type of activities by reading things that are edifying, not doing black magic, not giving people the evil eye, and, you know, slandering and all of the negative things, basically. You know, it may allow you to be part of the crowd, but the whole point of this is that you're not part of the crowd. You are you. You first have to once realize who you are and then become the best version of yourself and not be trapped in this cognitive dissonance, you know, where you're trapped by caring about what everybody around you thinks about you. They themselves haven't even started to do any of the work. And you would, you know, for lack of a better way of explaining, it would be like those people who were outside once Noah closed the door in that ark or whatever, and the rain started following. Up to that point, they were all laughing and jeering and just all of that kind of stuff. But once they realized, the error of their ways, they desperately wanted to get on that ship. Yes, it's whether you believe in that story or not, and there's a ton of other stories that story came from, which are far, far older. One of them I just purchased, which is, the Babylonian accounts, and the Akkadian accounts, called the Enuma Elish. And it goes into much, much greater detail about that whole event that took place, long before the biblical accounts of Noah. Okay? So there is a lot that, supports that event actually occurred. And we find it literally echoed again in every other culture, east and west, north and south. So, anyways, so that's why this is basically, an obstacle or a challenge, because all of these types of things are basically positive actions. And in order to do those positive actions, you have to do positive things, okay? So, it talks also about the arousal of desire and love affair. So, and this is not just a lustful connection that we're talking about. This is a new beginning. This is renewal and new birth. And it's also the birthing of a new enterprise or venture, perhaps. Okay, so that is the obstacle and challenge. Most of the other energy that we see for today is basically centered around filling in a rut, not having your creative juices flowing, your wheels are spinning, and things of that nature. So these are the things you have to get over or past in order to start the healing process. Then that's not to say, for example, you've done some wrong to somebody and you've been feeling for who knows how long, that you should go and try to make amends with that person and apologize. And that's exactly right, you should. But that does not mean that some of the karma, because of your previous actions, you're not going to experience. You will. So don't get it twisted, don't get it wrong. If you've done the crime, you're going to have to do a little bit of the time. But in order to start the healing process and to stop adding, if you will, more time to your sentence, then that is exactly the right thing to do. So I'm trying to be as honest and sincere about, what it is that I see, what I feel, and after, like I said, all the things that I have put together over my life, believe in my heart is true. I don't want to candy coat it, and I don't want to lead you astray. So that is something to consider. Now, as far as our help and advice, what we have here is Haglas. And Haglas is basically in reverse. Okay. Now, Haglas in reverse talks about disruptions and disruptive forces. Talks about negative payoffs. You put some effort into something and you thought you were going to get something. You probably did something shady and you thought you were going to get something positive out of it. Well, it turns out instead you're going to end up getting caught and you're going to be behind bars or something of that nature. But it also talks about other things that we can't control, like the forces of nature, so natural disasters and catastrophes, stagnation, loss of one's power, pain, of course, suffering and hardships, crises, and even sickness. Now, again, I don't want this for anybody, even those who've been doing the worst, to me, because, once we get to a certain point like this, then, we've already crossed that line, and it's going to get far, far worse before it ever has potentiality to get better. So that's what the help and advice is. It's just letting you know in advance that some things happen beyond our control. Again, like the forces of nature. Once you've actually, I guess you could say you flirted with disaster against nature in the form of karma, then when, that karma comes knocking on your door and it will find you, there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Then, depending on what it was that you did, you can expect to get that kind of energy back, and for some of you, and like in my case, I know that a lot of things have happened that are very heinous, So they can expect to experience some of that themselves if they haven't already. Now, your future outcome is also not very positive. It's Ewas in the reverse. Now, Ewas in the reverse, it speaks about long journeys. Well, for the collective, most of us have gone through a very lengthy cycle, and that long cycle that's finally coming to a close. So long journeys for those who have been, living on, the high life for the longest time, but living in a karmic, if you will, lifestyle. They're about to have everything flipped around, So it's like getting the Wheel of Fortune card in the upright in a reading. It's basically telling you that wheel is spinning. So those who have been down here suffering and, learning their lessons the hard way are going to be elevated, and they're going to be, if you will, getting much of the things that those who have stolen this energy from others have been, enjoying up to now. So it's just the flipping of the energy. But the thing is that's different, of course, is those in the collective, they earned it. They earned it by doing hard work, in some cases making many, many self-sacrifices. Okay? So we're talking about sudden changes. When these happen, it's going to happen when you're not expecting it, typically. Sudden, unexpected. It talks about craved changes, somebody who may be in a rut, stagnation we've been reading about quite a bit. So it talks about a form of restlessness, talks about haste, reckless haste even. Talks about, in other words, doing something, out of impulse instead of thinking it through and making the right course of action. Talks about again, a great deal of disharmony and mistrust and even betrayal. So those who have been working together and conspiring against the collective are now experiencing that one with the other. You know what they say about there's no honor among thieves and so on and so forth. When, the tables are turned, that often turns out to be true. Very true. Now, overall, we're looking at financial, psychological, physical, and spiritual losses on many levels. We're looking at betrayal, sickness, and possession by higher forces for some of those in that karmic energy. And I assume that's going to be for those who, even now, even after finding out information that could help them to get out of the hole eventually that they dug, are going to, they're simply going to ignore it. And it's going to be their downfall, and it's going to be a great downfall for them. And again, I don't want that for you out there if you're watching, you're a cross-watcher. But you make your own determinations, your own decisions. We're only responsible for ourselves in the end. So I wish you all well. For the collective out there, keep in mind these are our brothers and sisters. I know you know that, and I know many of you have good hearts and so on, or you wouldn't be here, trying to figure out your next move and all of that, and enduring so much of what you've had to go through. But sometimes it's hard to overlook, when people have done us really dirty, and the desire for get back and all that kind of stuff, it's inherent in all of us, and we all have a dark side, so don't deny it. Some of you may not be inclined to do those kinds of things. You may be a lot more into your feminine side and so on, and there's nothing wrong with that whether you're a man or a woman. I'm just saying that maybe you're quicker to forgive, and forgetting is a whole other ballgame, of course. But forgiving doesn't imply that you're taking these people back into your life or allowing them access into your energetic sphere of influence again. But you should probably give them an opportunity, if you feel inclined to do so, to hear them out and to give them a chance to do the right thing. Do unto others. If you were in that situation, you were young and growing, spiritually in your journey, you would hope that the people you've wronged would give you that opportunity. But they're not obliged to have to do that. So if you are a cross-watcher and that's where you're at, then keep in mind, this is something you're going to have to do. This is one of the first steps towards correcting the damage that you've already done, okay? And that means you may not get what it is that you're looking for as far as an outcome, but you still do it because it's the right thing, okay? And that's all I have to say about that. So as always, stay victorious, and I'll see you very, very soon. I'm going to do 2 more readings here, and I'll get back to you. Okay, so God bless. Take care.